Please be seated. The court is now back in session. And the Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. To be brief, I wish to, for the record, correct something that was, I believe, misrepresented in the testimony or questioning that we just heard. There was a reference representing that DCCAM's research only found 1,045 victims at Krang Tachan. That is incorrect. Before the Chamber, document E3/2063, E3/2063 is the actual record that was created at the time DCCAM went to visit Krang Tachan and made its conclusions. And that document records an estimated number of victims of 10,043, not 1,000, 10,000. It's recorded in a number of places, including the handwritten form prepared by the DCCAM investigator. So it's incumbent on counsel, I believe, to accurately represent the evidence that is before the Chamber, not to seize upon a typo in some article written by someone later.
Mr. President, I'd like to respond briefly to the statement by the prosecution. What we are doing before this court is to make a debate on those certain documents, and this is not the right time for the prosecution to make any impression on the correctness or the incorrectness of a witness statement. President, yes, you may proceed, and you still have about 30 minutes left. Counsel, thank you, Mr. President. And Mr. Witness, before we broke, I wanted to ask you about the interrogation, and you stated also that you were interrogated 3 times while you were detained at Krang Tachan. Can you provide a little bit more details on the buildings that you were detained? That is 6 by 20 meters, and the walls were made of coconut tree leaves. My question is the following. What is the distance between the detention building and the place where you were interrogated? Answer. It was not 6 by 6 meters, it was 3 by 6 meters, and the interrogation area was on the ground, and we were sitting on the ground while the interrogator was sitting on a chair. Question. Was that area to the west or to the north of the detention building? Answer, it was to the west of the prison. Question, as for the walls made of coconut tree leaves, were all 4 walls covered with coconut tree leaves, except the door? Can you tell us a little bit in detail? Answer, all 4 walls were covered, and there was a door to the north. Question, were all the walls fully covered, or only half the walls were covered, for example, up to the thigh or to the waist? Answer. It was from the edge of the roof to the ground. All the areas were covered. Question. You stated that it was the west of the big building. Can you tell us the actual distance? Answer. It was only about 1 meter away. It was not that far. Thank you, says the counsel. Question. My following question is related to the administrative structure in the southwest zone. You stated before this court that you knew Tamok since before the liberation, and that he also had contact with your family, as at the time Tamok was a monk. My question is the following. During the period of Democratic Cambodia regime, specifically during the time of your detention at the Krang Tachan, when did you first meet the Tamok? Answer. I met him once when he went to Krang Tachan through South and instructed them for my release. Question. When he went there, did he enter the detention building? Answer. He actually called from outside the compound. He was standing to the east of the prison compound. Question. Can you recall the exact words that he used when he shouted? Answer. Of course, I recall it clearly. What he said was, Ajahn Chen, who was a doctor detained here, there was a doctor who was detained here. Did you feed him yet? If not, feed him, and when I return from the south, then I fetch him up. Question. Did you actually see Tamok when he was shouting as you said? Answer. I was in the detention building. I could not see him. And only after I left, he was with the one who rode the motorcycle. Question. Did you know about the leadership level at the Southwest Zone? Answer. No, I did not. I didn't know who were the leaders for that zone. Question. Did you know at that time the position of Tamok? Answer. I did not know which position Tamok had, but in general, during the time when people refer to a man by using the word ta, it meant that person was of a senior position. Question. Did you know Tamok had any position in controlling the Southwest Zone? Answer. As for me, and Tamok, I did not see him as a cruel person at all. Question. I'd like to remind you of what you stated about an inspection at a cooperative in Contour commune by Tamok. Do you recall the event? Answer. He was there and I was having my meal at the time. Tamok blames the chief of the cooperative and that they didn't do their work properly, and how could they convince us to join the revolution? And then he threw away the soup and ordered the chief to make a new soup for us. Question. Did you observe the reaction by people in their cooperative to what Tamok said? Answer. Nobody dared to say anything. Everybody was silent, including us. We were just sitting quietly waiting for our meal. Question. Did you meet Tamok frequently during the period of democratic Cambodia? Answer. No, not that frequently. He was constantly on mobile, and while I was at the worksite engaging in the water pumping machines and irrigation, I saw him rather frequently for that specific period of time. Question. As to the cause for your release from Krang Tachan prison, when Tamok went there to pick you up, you talked about an equipment that you conclude that, and your conclusion was based on your experience in repairing that machine. It was an equipment that Tamok wanted you to repair. Can you tell the court your skill or expertise in fixing that equipment, and can you tell the court what kind of equipment it was? Answer. It was a radiography machine. I did not fix it alone. There were other people who lent hand in repairing that machine. Question. Did Tamok tell you anything about why he needed you to repair that radiography machine? Answer. He didn't say anything about that. He dropped me off at the hospital, and I involved in the fixing of that machine with other people there at the hospital. Question. What can you say about the relationship between your family and Tamok? What was it like? Answer. After the death of my mother, the relationship became rather distant or remote. However, there was an advice from him that I had to sacrifice all my previous social status because that I was an intellectual, and it is a part of the targets to be researched or monitored. Question. After you left Krang Tachan, and what was the first jobs that you were assigned to, and where was it? Answer: after I left Krantachan, I did not go straight to my house. I was taken to the Khmer Rouge hospital, and I assisted in repairing that machine. After it was repaired, then I was asked about the various medical equipments and what they were used for, and also about the medicines. And later on, I was taken back to my home. Question: there was a research conducted after 1979. Have you had any relationship with an official from an Oxfam organization? Answer: yes, I had contact with a woman, Annie Brown, and another man named Tozo Pierre. Question: can you tell the court the nature of works that you did jointly with the two people you just mentioned? Answer: they assisted in providing corns, flour, and help digging a well for the poor villagers. Question: did you tell them about the collection of skeleton remains at Krantachan? Answer: as for the skeleton remains, after we exhumed, we stored them in one place and then later on moved to store in a house, and further on we stored them in a stupa, and the stupa remains standing today. Council: thank you, Mr. President. I don't have any further question. President, thank you. Mr. Kao Chandra, the Chamber would like to thank you for your valuable time in testifying before this court. Your testimony has come to an end now, and you may be excused from the courtroom and returned to your residence or wherever you wish to go to. And the Chamber wishes you a safe journey. Court officer, in collaboration with Visu, please assist in the transportation of this witness through his residence. And the Chamber also would like to thank the TPO support staff for your assistance in assisting this witness during his testimony, and you may also be excused. Court officer, could you usher a civil party through TCP 271 into the courtroom? President, good morning, Mr. Civil Party. What is your name? Civil Party. Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Soi San. I lived in Ong Ta Saom, Tramkot district. President, can you tell the court your date of birth? Answer, I cannot recall the exact date of birth since I was young at the time. President interrupts, can you tell the court the year you were born? Answer, I'm sorry, I cannot. Question, how old are you this year? Answer, I am 57 years old. Question, where were you born? Answer, I was born at Tropangpo village, Samrang commune, Tramkot district, Takeo province. Question, what is your current address? Answer, I now live in Ong Ta Saom commune, Takeo district. Ong Ta Saom commune. Question, and what is your current occupation? Answer, I'm a rice farmer. Question, what are your parents' names? Answer, my father is Nang Soi and my mother is Kut Son. And question, and what is your wife's name and how many children do you have together? Answer, my wife's name is Ken Savung and we have 7 children. Question, President, rather, Mr. Soi San, at the end of your testimony as a civil party, you will be given an opportunity to make a statement of impact on the suffering that you suffered during the period of democratic Cambodia, if you wish to do so. And pursuant to Rule 91bis of the internal rules, the Chamber will cede the floor to the elite co-lawyers for civil parties first to put the questions to this civil party. You may proceed. Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honors, and we seek your leave to designate Moch Savanari and Martin Jacquin to put the questions to this civil party of Soi San. President, yes, you may proceed, and Council Coupe, you have the floor.
Sorry to interrupt so early, Mr. President, but there's some confusion on our side about both the date of birth and the name of his father. I just want to make sure that we have the actual civil party in front of us before we go on. I have a different name from his father in his statements. I have also a different date of birth. So if you could ask the civil party some more questions on this, I would highly appreciate it.
President, Council, you will also have time to put the questions to this civil party, and you may ask for clarification on issues that you want. And as he stated, he cannot recall his date of birth or his year of birth, but he told the chamber his age. In Khmer culture, usually we don't refer to the date of birth, and we actually tend to give the age rather than the date of birth. Of course, we like to get a clarification from him on his exact date of birth. And in the practice of the domestic court, we would ask the witness to give us his year, or if he cannot recall, his age at that moment. So in a few years' time, we can also know how old he will become based on the age that he said during the previous hearing. And we can make that calculation accordingly. And Councillor Kong Sam On, you have the floor. Kong Sam On, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a small request regarding document E319.1.5 by the prosecution and other relevant documents. Since this kind of document is not accessible by our defense team. For that reason, I'd like the chamber to make an arrangement so that the defense teams will have access to the documents that will be referred to or used by the prosecution.
The President, thank you for your request, Mr. Kong Samon. You addressed the document to be used for questioning before the trial chamber, and you cannot access the document you requested for the chamber's instruction. The chamber will deliberate and rule on that during the recess for lunch break. So the chamber gives the floor to the lead co-lawyer to put question to the civil party. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Your Honors, at the bench, and my esteemed counsel, co-prosecutors, relevant counsel, and Mr. Soy Sam, and all in and around the courtroom. I have a number of questions to ask you, Mr. Civil Party. First of all, I would like to ask you to confirm the court about your biography and your parents before the arrival of the Khmer Rouge regime. Counsel, can you tell the court who was your father, and how do you know the name of your mother and their relationship with you, your parents' relationship to you? Response: at the beginning, my mother worked for Sot Soy during the Sihanouk regime, and then Sok Soy married to my mother, and she had pregnant, and she left to the liberated zone of the Khmer Rouge in Ang Tasam, and she gave a birth to me. And my father, Sok Soy, was not the lawful husband of my mother. Questions. If I am not mistaken, you were born in the liberated zone of the Khmer Rouge. It was not in your father's place of residence. How do you know your father, and to what extent you know him as your father? Response: I don't know him very clearly, but his relatives told me that Sok Soy is my father because my mother was the one who married, who co-inhabited with him first. Question: can I say that you and your father do not know each other very well, and you did not live together at all after your birth? Response: no, we never lived together, because I just heard from the relatives that I am his son. I just saw him from a distance only. Counsel for Civil Party, in your response to the President, you said that your name is Soy Sam. Did you use this name during the DK regime? Do you use this name since your birth? Response: I did not use this name before. I used Kut Sam. So if I use Soy Sam, I might have been killed because my father was killed. Question. I have another question for you. Why you use could as your surname during that regime? Respond. There's another old lady told me to use could san. So if I use soy san, I will be identified by the Khmer rules and I will be the target for execution. So I use could san. Question in relation to your age. I want you to tell the court again, when the Khmer rules liberated your area, how old were you at that time? Respond. I cannot remember my age, but I think I was probably 10 years old. Counsel, thank you, civil party. Before I move on to what happened to you during the K regime, I want to ask you the interview by the OCIJ in document statement dated the 30th of October 2007, E3/5129. You cannot provide information regarding Krang Dechan due to security reason, and another document dated the 1st September 2008, E3/5214. You said you respond. You gave your question to the OCIJ investigator. Why you could respond in the second interview? Were you also in fear when you gave the interview in the second meeting? Response. I could respond during the second interview. On the first meeting, I was fearful that the regime may return into power. And later, I thought that the regime will not be returned, so I decided to respond. Question. And you said that you were in fear, and you were also in fear after the fall of the Khmer Rouge regime. So, did you experience any beating or any bad experience that caused you to be in fear? So, can you tell the court about your experience? The President. Yes, we could hear, but counsel is instructed to speak more slowly so that the interpretation can work properly and we can have a proper court record for your examination. Civil party lawyer. Thank you, Mr. President. Civil party, do you remember my question, or would you like me to ask you again? Civil party, could you please ask again? Question, you said you were in fear, and was there any attack or any mistreatment against you that caused you to live in fear? Was there any problem that caused you any injury or scar so that you still living in fear? Civil party, yes. I did not respond at the beginning because those who were at Krang Tachan were still living in my community because I'm a farmer. I would move around, and those people were still living in my community, and one of them beat me on my head, and for accusing me of stealing cassava. But of course I didn't steal it. Counsel, thank you. So you said that you refer to Krang Tachan prisons. When were you arrested and sent to Krang Tachan prison? Civil party, I can recall the year. It was in 1974, but I cannot remember the month. Counsel, thank you. Can you describe for the court the event of your arrest, who made the arrest, and the reason of your arrest? Civil party, at the beginning, there was one militiaman who took me, who would send me to the youth unit and Angroka, and my grandmother told him that he's too young to be in the unit, and two militiamen took me to Angroka to see Khon, and Khon sent to Tropang Pring, where Takel was in charge. And at Takel's house, he sent me to Krang Tachan prison. When I was transferred there, I cannot remember. It was about half months or 10 days. I was not interrogated, but I was shackled and detained. And later I was interrogated, and then I have connection to Prumsan, who was a bandit in a jungle. But in fact, I had no connection to this person. Civil party lawyers, when you were detained at Krang Tachan, were you always detained and shackled? What did they have you do at the time? Response, at the beginning I was always under detention for about a month or so, and then I was let out to do some farming, including clearing the grass or carrying human feces from the detention place, and Tachan also assigned to do that. And for a period of time, they trusted me, and they authorized me to work outside, tendering cattle, and so on. Question. Can you tell the court why you were released and worked inside the compound of the prison? Response. I was released to do labor because he told me that I am the youngest, and I was told to be quiet, so that I should not tell anyone, so that they will spare me. If not, I will be killed. So I was ordered to tender buffalo and to dig the pits for a corpse, and to carry the prisoner who died in shackle, and then I was ordered to drag to buried in the grave, and then we were told to grow coconut on the grave with Tachen. It was a long story, but I forget some detail because it was 40 years now. Council, thank you. Why they order you to do that? They don't have any staff to do that task? Do you know the reason behind that? Respond. Yes, I can tell you. There were 12 security guards. They were called combatant, and there were chief and 2 deputy chiefs, and there were 15 altogether in their group. But they were also tired from their duties, and they ordered me and Tachen to dig the grave, or to dig the pits, and also to bury the pits. And the chief asked me, can you collect the sukapam juice? I said yes, and then I collecting sukapam juice for him to drink. Council, thank you, civil party. The task was assigned by the chief or by the staff. Could you refuse any task at the time? Respond, no, I could not do that. I was expecting to be assigned. I pray to get the assignment because those assignments can help me to survive. So I even told them to do anything that I could not do it at all. Council, you said that you were authorized to work during the daytime. So where did you stay during the night time? Response. During the daytime, I was let out to tender cattle, and I returned 4 p.m. and other 15 or 14 people were assigned to doing farming and growing vegetable. But I was also detained and shackled at night, but I had to put the shackle on by myself. So I was ordered to carry away the dead body before I shackle myself in the building. Council, thank you. Civil party. Talking about food ration and meals, and for those prisoners who were let out to do labor, did they receive any different meals than the prisoners who were in detention under shackle? Response. The food ration and per each meal, it was hard to describe. There were 4 buildings. There were about 20 or 40 prisoners per buildings, but the rice they cooked was a very small quantity, but they would use a coconut shell to distribute for each prisoner. And then I was assigned to carry those porridge to another building and to distribute the porridge to those prisoners. And there was some rice grain in the porridge at the bottom of the pan, and I could use that remaining for myself, but the other prisoner receive only a few grain of rice in the water in the porridge. Counsel, thank you. When you were in this situation, you were let out to do labor during the daytime, and at night you were detained, shackled. So were there any change in condition for you during that time? Response: It was always like that until the end of the regime. I was considered to be the less serious offender, and they spared my life, and then they ordered me to come back to the detention building for 5 o'clock, but if there's a dead body in the building, I had to remove and bury before I come to the building to shackle myself as part of the detention. Counsels, a while ago you described briefly about the condition of the detention of the prisoner in shackle. I would like to know the condition of detentions for the prisoner who were always shackled and detained days and nights from 17 April 1975 until the end of the regime. So could you describe the condition of the detention? What can you tell the court based on your experience and your what you saw during the time? Response: Talking about prisoners under shackle and detention, it was beyond my description. It is beyond our understanding. They were in miserable condition. There were bed bugs and insects surrounding them, and they die of starvation and also from disease. So I remember certain details, but I forget some of them. Counsel, a while ago you said and you described about the food ration for the prisoners. They use coconut shell to distribute meals. So can you tell the court how those prisoners in shackle relieve themselves when they are in shackle? Response: They would relieve themselves. I don't want to describe. Both legs were in shackle, and they used the coconut shell for relieve themselves, and they pass from one prisoner to another, and then they drop into a bucket, and then they use the same coconut shell and then just clean by water, and they use the same coconut shell for giving the water to the prisoners. So when I talk about this, it is hard for me to describe. I feel emotional on that. Counsel, you said that they use the same coconut shell for collecting human feces, urine, and also they use the same coconut shell for giving water to the prisoner. So could you describe about that? Respond: Yes, they use the same coconut shell. So I was ordered to collect those coconut shell with human feces and urine to put in the the bucket, and then I need to return the same coconut shells to each prisoner. And any prisoner who make any sound to the shackle, and he or she would be tortured by beating during the night. Counsel, thank you. Civil party. I would like to know the detention of the prisoners. Were they mixed between women prisoner and male prisoner in the same building? Response. During the war period, before the fall of Phnom Penh into the Khmer Rouge, in a building there were two rows of the prisoner. So one row for women prisoners and another for male prisoners. But after the liberation, they detained mixing men and women prisoners in the same row, the same building. Question. So in your detention building, you saw female prisoners there. Can you tell the court when the female prisoners were also shackled in the same row? Did you notice any difficulty suffered by those female prisoners? Response. For female prisoners who were in shackle, they suffer much more difficulty. But everyone did not say anything, so they could relieve themselves in any way, the same as other. They don't feel, they had no right to be shy, so everyone lose their weight during the detention. Counsel, thank you. Earlier you said that you were arrested and sent to Krang Thachan prison in 1924 until the fall of Phnom Penh in 1929. I would like you to tell the court about the event you saw in the prison, the sending in of the prisoners, and can you tell the court how many prisoners were sent from one day to another? Was there any difference in number of prisoners who were sent there a week or so? Respond. I cannot remember, but I saw there were many prisoners after the liberation by the Khmer Rouge. There were 70 hundreds at one time, but before that there were from 2, 3, 4, 5 each time they were brought in. But after the liberation of Phnom Penh, I saw they brought in 50 or 20, sometimes 70. So, President, thank you, Counsel. Now it is appropriate time for court recess for lunch break, and until 1:30 this afternoon. Court officer, please work with the witness support section to assist the civil party and to have a place for them to rest and have lunch, and also the TPO staff, and bring them back before 1:30. Security personnel are instructed to bring the accused to the holding cell and bring them back before 1:30 to the courtroom this afternoon. The court is adjourned.